session. I welcome you all to this Tech Trends Conclave organized by the Southern India Chamber of Commerce and Industry. This edition of the Tech Trends Conclave is focused on Tamil language development, especially policies, perspectives, and the best practices. To begin with, I would like to very briefly introduce the Southern India Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The SICI, as it is called, it's a 111-year-old industry body. We act as a bridge between the industry and the government. We do this in multiple ways. One of our strategies is to host events where we bring all the stakeholders, members from the industry, from the government, from the academia. Today's event is one such example where we have the Honorable Minister, we have industry experts from across the world, as well as an academic institution like the VIT coming together to solve the challenges and the issues and come up with recommendations which can be followed through. Another way the chamber works is through knowledge reports and activities. And we also work very closely with the governments at the states and center to ensure that we are playing a very positive role in the policy formulation process. This event, how it came about, we were initially approached by the government of Tamil Nadu to help them in their focus on technology and Tamil. There was a need to usher in a greater role of technology in the development of the language. So we had initially planned to have this by the end of this month in a physical or in a hybrid format, where we are hoping for a lot of other activities as well. A hackathon, we wanted to have a translate-a-thon, a report being released, a few roadshows being organized in Tamil Nadu as well as outside of India. Unfortunately, because of the COVID wave, we were not able to plan for a lot of these activities. So it was decided that we go ahead in a virtual format so as to begin this interest, and this can be sustained over the bigger event which we are now planning for March or at the latest by April. So this event, it's one of a series that we've been focusing on. What are the trends, technology trends that would impact a particular sector? So we started initially with healthcare. We were identifying the healthcare trends, as technology trends. We had the second session on education, and now we are looking at following it up with Tamil language and its development. So I would not take much of your time. Today we have a series of interactions, experts and policy makers sharing their thoughts. So without further ado, we will quickly get started into our activities. To kickstart our today's session, we have Dr. V.P. Jayaseelan IAS. He's the director of Tamil Nadu Virtual Academy. We had initially requested both the director as well as the Honorable Minister to join us live. Unfortunately, because of a meeting with the Honorable Chief Minister, they could not attend. However, they have recorded their thoughts and they have shared it with us. So they are very particular that this initiative goes on. This is one of the priority areas for the government. So we would like to play the recording, the comments of Dr. V.P. Jayaseelan, who is the director for Tamil Nadu Virtual Academy.
அனைவருக்கும் இனிய வணக்கங்கள். கணித்தமிழ் வளர்ச்சியில் தமிழ்நாடு அரசு கடந்த 20 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு மேலாக பல்வேறு முன்னெடுப்புகளை தொடர்ச்சியாக செய்து வருகிறது. 20 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு முன்னதாக ஆரம்பிக்கப்பட்ட தமிழ் இணைய கல்விக் கழகம் தமிழ் கணினியில் கணித்தமிழில் புதிய மென்பொருள்களை உருவாக்குதல், புதிய படைப்புகளுக்கு ஊக்கமளித்தல், கணித்தமிழ் ஆர்வலர்களை, கணித்தமிழ் அறிஞர்களை உருவாக்குவது என தொடர்ச்சியான ஊக்குவிப்பதற்கான பங்களிப்பையும் மேற்கொண்டு வருகிறது. இன்றைய நவீன தேவைக்கேற்ப தமிழ் கணித்தமிழ் தமிழுக்கான கணிப்பொறி மென்பொருள்கள் அறிமுகப்படுத்தப்பட்டுள்ளனவா அல்லது பயன்பாட்டில் இருக்கின்றனவா என்ற கேள்விக்கு விடையை தேடுகின்ற பொழுது அது சற்றே ஒரு சுணக்கம் இருப்பதாகவே நமக்கு தெரிய வருகிறது. அந்த சுணக்கத்தை அந்த இடைவெளியை குறைக்க வேண்டிய முயற்சியில் தற்பொழுது நவீன தொழில்நுட்பங்களை உள்ளடக்கிய கணித்தமிழ் வளர்ச்சியாக அவற்றை உருவாக்க வேண்டும் என்று பல்வேறு இளைய அறிஞர்கள், ஆர்வலர்கள், கணித்தமிழ் விற்பனர்கள் முயன்று கொண்டிருக்கிறார்கள். அந்த முயற்சியை இன்னும் வேகப்படுத்த வேண்டிய தேவை நமக்கு இருக்கிறது. இந்த தென்னிந்திய வர்த்தக தொழில் சபையினுடைய சிக்கியினுடைய இந்த தொழில்நுட்ப மாநாடு கணித்தமிழ் வளர்ச்சிக்கு அடுத்து நாம் பயணிக்க வேண்டிய தூரங்களை நிர்ணயிப்பதிலும், அடுத்து நாம் உருவாக்க வேண்டிய மென்பொருள்களுக்கான பாதையை ஏற்படுத்துவதிலும், அடுத்து நாம் அடைய வேண்டிய இலக்குகளை உருவாக்குவதிலும் ஒரு முக்கிய தொடக்கமாக இருக்கும் என்று நான் நம்புகின்றேன். இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியின் மூலமாக புதிதாக வரக்கூடிய கணினி பொறியாளர்கள் கணித்தமிழ் அறிவோடும் கணித்தமிழ் ஆர்வத்தோடும் வருவது மிக மிக முக்கியமானது. புதிய இளைஞர்கள் இந்த கணித்தமிழ் குறித்த முழுமையான ஆராய்ச்சியில் ஈடுபடுவதற்கான வாய்ப்பும் தேவையும் அதிகமாக இருக்கிறது. அவர்கள் அனைவரையும் சிறந்த தொழில்நுட்பங்களோடு, சிறந்த முன்மொழிவுகளோடு, ப்ரொபோசல்ஸோடு வரக்கூடிய இளையோர்களை ஆதரிப்பதற்கும் அவர்களுக்கான வாய்ப்புகளை வழங்குவதற்கும் தமிழ் இணைய கல்விக் கழகம் மிகுந்த ஆர்வமாக இருக்கிறது என்பதை நான் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். இந்த நிகழ்ச்சி வெற்றி பெறுவதற்கும் இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியில் கலந்து கொண்டிருக்கக்கூடிய அனைத்து கணித்தமிழ் ஆர்வலர்களுக்கும் என்னுடைய நன்றியையும் வாழ்த்துக்களையும் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். வணக்கம்.
We would like to thank Dr. V.P. Jayaseelan for his comments. When we had requested him, he immediately expressed his best wishes and he could not be a part of today's session live, so he had recorded his comments. I would now like to share with you the comments of Mano Thangaraj. He is the Honorable Minister for IT, Government of Tamil Nadu. He has been a pillar of support for the chamber. He has regularly encouraged our initiatives, and he is a minister who is really passionate about bringing a change in this current scenario for the better. I would now like to share the comments of Mr. Mano Thangaraj, the Honorable Minister for IT.
தென்னிந்திய தொழில் வர்த்தக சபையின் சார்பில் நடைபெறுகின்ற டெக் ட்ரெண்ட்ஸ் விர்ச்சுவல் கான்க்ளேவ், டெக் ட்ரெண்ட்ஸ் தமிழ் பாலிசிஸ் பெர்ஸ்பெக்டிவ்ஸ் பிராக்டிசஸ் என்ற தலைப்பில் நடைபெறுகின்ற இந்த மாநாட்டில் கலந்து கொண்டிருக்கும் திரு சோமசுந்தரம் அவர்களே, திரு முத்து நெடுமாறன் அவர்களே, திரு மகேஷ்குமார் அவர்களே, திரு குமாரராஜன் அவர்களே, திரு விவேகானந்த் பாணி அவர்களே, இங்கு கலந்து கொண்டிருக்கக்கூடிய என்னுடைய அன்புக்குரிய நண்பர்களே, இன்று உங்களிடம் இந்த காணொலியின் மூலமாக பேசுவதில் நான் பட்ட மகிழ்ச்சி அடைகின்றேன். கொரோனா நோய் தொற்றானது நமது வாழ்க்கையை மட்டுமல்லாமல் நமது தகவல் தொழில்நுட்ப துறையிலும் பல மாற்றங்களை கொண்டு வந்திருக்கிறது. இத்தகைய மாற்றங்களை ஒரு அச்சுறுத்தலாக காணாமல் இதையும் ஒரு வாய்ப்பாக நாம் பார்க்க வேண்டும். இன்று தமிழக அரசு மாண்புமிகு நம்முடைய முதல்வர் அவருடைய தலைமையில் இந்த பெருந்தொற்று நோயை தடுப்பதில் மட்டுமில்லாமல் தமிழ்நாட்டை தகவல் தொழில்நுட்ப துறையில் சிறந்த ஒரு மாநிலமாக மாற்றுவதில் பல திட்டங்களை வகுத்து வருகிறார். இன்றைக்கு மாறி வருகின்ற தொழில்நுட்பங்கள் ஒரு காலத்தில் ஒரு விசிடி பிளேயர் ஒன்றினை சரியாக இயக்க வைத்து அதன் காட்சியை அதோடு இணைக்கப்பட்டக்கூடிய டிவியில் காட்டுகின்ற ஒருவரை ஒரு பெரிய தொழில்நுட்பம் தெரிந்தவராக நாம் கருதுவோம். 1980களில் இசைத்தட்டுகள் 15 ஆண்டுகளில் மொத்தமாக வழக்கொழிந்து போகும் என யாராவது எண்ணி இருப்பார்களா? இன்றைக்கு ஸ்மார்ட் வாட்ச் மற்றும் ஸ்மார்ட் கிளாஸ் போன்றவை டச் ஸ்கிரீன் திரைகள் கொண்ட ஸ்மார்ட் போனின் இடத்தை பிடிக்க வெகு விரைவில் பிடிக்கிறது. Tamil technology, starting from late 1970s and on to the early 1990s, when personal computers became available on a significant scale, a number of Tamil professionals around the world were enthused to undertake individual efforts to incorporate Tamil language in computers and in the fledgling internet. By the late 1980s, the degree of incompatibility among these efforts had limited the value of their contributions to local context. Global cooperation facilitated by momentous developments in internet and computing technologies, has since then led to many remarkable achievements. Sending and receiving email with text in Tamil or handling chat have been greatly simplified. Text-to-speech editors have been developed for the benefit of the visually handicapped. The number of Tamil websites have become large and it is growing. These include those of Tamil newspapers and magazines and e-journals. Then there are greeting cards, matrimonial sites, online learning resources, and those sites devoted to cookery, beauty tips, health issues, songs, movies, tourism information, games, puzzles, and so on in Tamil. Unicode has become a world standard, and many computer applications have provided Unicode support so that multilingual text can be handled. In the era of information technology, language technology, aided by artificial intelligence and machine learning, is going to be one of the most important disruptive technologies in the immediate future. We are blessed with Tamil, a classical language which connects us with millions of our brothers and sisters across the world. There is immense scope for the development of the language through artificial intelligence. இங்கு பலரும் ஆர்டிஃபிஷியல் இன்டெலிஜென்ஸ் என்ற பதத்தின் தமிழ் மொழிபெயர்ப்பு செயற்கை நுண்ணறிவு என்று கேள்விப்பட்டிருப்பீர்கள். தமிழ் மொழியின் வளர்ச்சிக்கு செயற்கை நுண்ணறிவின் பங்களிப்பு என்ன? கிட்டத்தட்ட 75% மக்கள் இன்று எழுதவும் படிக்கவும் பேசவும் தங்கள் தாய்மொழியை விரும்புகின்றனர். அது மட்டுமல்லாமல் பெரும்பாலானோர் குரல் அடிப்படையிலான தொடர்புகள் மற்றும் பரிமாற்றங்களை விரும்புகின்றனர். ஒரு மொழி உருவாவதற்கு பல்லாயிரக்கணக்கான வருடங்கள் தேவைப்பட்டது. அத்தகைய ஆயிரக்கணக்கான ஆண்டுகளின் வளர்ச்சியை குறுகிய காலத்தில் கடனை கற்றுக் கொடுப்பது மிகவும் ஒரு பெரிய சவால். ஆகவேதான் இணையம் கூட ஒரு சில வருடங்களுக்கு முன்பு வரைக்கும் ஆங்கிலம் பேச தெரிந்தவர்களுக்கு மட்டுமே பயனுள்ளதாக இருந்தது. ஆனால் இன்றோ தமிழ் மொழியை மொழிபெயர்ப்பு செய்வதிலும் தமிழ் மொழியின் எழுத்துக்களின் வளர்ச்சியிலும் செயற்கை நுண்ணறிவு மூலம் பல முன்னேற்றங்கள் ஏற்பட்டுள்ளன. மேலும் செயற்கை நுண்ணறிவு மூலம் குரல் சார்ந்த செயலாக்கங்களிலும் பல வியக்கத்தக்க முன்னேற்றங்களை நாம் காண்கின்றோம். அது மட்டுமல்லாமல் செயற்கை நுண்ணறிவு தமிழ் மொழியை ஒரு தொழில் மொழியாகவே மாற்றி வருகிறது. பல்வேறு நிறுவனங்கள் தமிழ் மொழியை பயன்படுத்தி தங்கள் வர்த்தகங்களை நடத்துவதிலும் தொழிலை மேம்படுத்துவதற்கும் செயற்கை நுண்ணறிவை பயன்படுத்த துவங்கியுள்ளனர். ஆகவே செயற்கை நுண்ணறிவின் தலைநகரமாக விரைவில் தமிழ்நாடு திகழும் என்பதில் எல்லளவும் ஐயம் யாருக்கும் வேண்டாம். At the same time, there are many lingering problems. Information technology in respect of the use of Tamil computers should necessarily aim to reach all the people so as to give them benefits of this new technological power. People should be able to use computers to deal with information given in Tamil without knowledge of English on the part of the user. Some of the current research and development efforts address such issues. Natural language processing in Tamil is one of the fascinating fields of research in computer science, and it has been seen a lot of advancements since it was initiated. This is made possible merely due to the passionate Tamil people around the globe. Since Tamil natural language processing is a multidisciplinary field, its growth is fueled not only by computer science researchers but also by Tamil linguistics and experts from various domains such as literature, education, social activities, etc. Right from creating fonts, building simple rule-based tools, and incorporating the recent advancements of machine learning and deep learning approaches, the Tamil community is suddenly waking up to all the missed opportunities after realizing how far Tamil language is falling behind many other languages. The Tamil Picture Academy under IT department is working tirelessly to usher in technology into the language. We hope to organize an international conclave on Tamil technology soon within the next couple of months, jointly with the Tamil associations across the world. At this juncture, I thank BIT for working tirelessly to develop innovative products such as the app to translate sign language to Tamil, tracking emotions, automatically tagging images in Tamil, cataloging books in Tamil, among others. I wish them the best in their endeavors. முடிவாக இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியை ஏற்பாடு செய்திருக்கக்கூடிய தென்னிந்திய தொழில் வர்த்தக சபையை நான் பாராட்டுகின்றேன். இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியில் கலந்திருக்கும் ஒவ்வொரு பங்கேற்பாளர்களையும் நான் வாழ்த்துகின்றேன். தமிழக அரசின் ஐடி துறையின் மூலம் இன்னும் இத்தகைய முயற்சிகளுக்கு உங்கள் அனைவருக்கும் எங்களுடைய ஒத்துழைப்பை தருவோம் என்று கூறி விடைபெறுகின்றேன். வணக்கம்.
We would like to thank the Honorable Minister for his positive and encouraging words. And as the Honorable Minister said, we are planning to host an international session jointly with the various associations and stakeholders from across the world towards this within the next couple of months. Moving forward, we now get into the most interesting part of today's program. We have the panel discussion. We have put together an expert panel from across the world, people who are giants in this field. They have chosen to invest their time into this event. I thank them for that. I would like to briefly introduce them. We have Mr. M. Somasundaram. He's the chair for Southern India Chamber's Tamil Technology Committee. He is also the CEO of Niamsoft. We also have Mr. Muthu Nedumaran, who of course needs no introduction. He is the chairman for Murasu Systems Malaysia. We also have Mr. Kumar Rangarajan, the co-founder of Slang Labs. And we have Mr. Mahesh Kumar. He heads the department, a unit in Credit Suisse, Singapore. And we also have Mr. Vivekanand Pani, the co-founder and CTO of Rivieri Language Technologies. I now like to request Mr. M. Somasundaram, the chair for SICKI's Tamil Tech Committee, to take over the proceedings. Over to you, Mr. Somasundaram.
Thank you, Mr. Noor. Thank you, all the panelists and the participants for spending your time today in this wonderful morning. Ideally, this session should be in Tamil, but we have one of our special guests, Mr. Pani. So for his comfort, we are choosing English for this discussion. So thank you everyone again for participating in this event. So in this session, we have devised in two parts. One is that we have set of questions from our committee that we would like to ask the panelists, and we also would like to hear the views of the panelists from their area of expertise, from their observation for the viewers and for the benefit of others. So this is two sessions. We have segregated into two parts. To begin with, I would like to ask a general question to everyone. So in this pandemic, we all know there is a surge in the digital consumption. Whether it's liked or not, like we are forced into consuming more and more digital content. So how does it affect or affected, or what kind of data that has come in, or what kind of technologies that are developed, or what's your observation on this for the development of language technology for Tamil? How do you think that this will help, or what will be the effect on this, because of this? Yeah, please. I will start with Mr. Muthu Nedumaran, please. Yeah. So, sorry, your voice is not audible, sir.
You hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, hi, thanks. Hi, everybody. That's a very interesting question. My take to this is this, when people like us, we have worked offline, we have worked remotely. I've never had an office for like maybe about 2 or 3 decades, even though I worked for companies like Oracle and Sun Microsystems in the past. But for the rest of the people, I think they were actually taken by shock. And they were not prepared. The infrastructure, although it existed, it was known to the business community. It was not as prevalent to the general audience. And let's leave alone their comfort of working remotely, working from home. I had friends who are very seniors in the industry who couldn't handle it. They couldn't take it. They couldn't take the fact that they have to sit at home and work, so, it was taken by shock. It was not a prepared, planned transition, working physically to working virtually and remotely. So that's one interesting observation. But more interesting than that is the speed at which the community caught up. Community in general, I'm talking about worldwide. People knew that this is how we're going to live with, and we can't just stay at home and do nothing. And they caught up, and it actually has given, it opened up opportunities for a lot of people who had interests within a small interest group to find each other and interact with each other. For example, people in Malaysia had the opportunity to listen to what's happening in Kiradi directly from people who are involved. This never happened before. It was always filtered down through the media, but this time we were able to engage with people, and that actually, mushroomed a lot more interest. I attended a workshop where someone taught how to read and write the Brahmi script. We understand that, but taking a pencil and writing was a very interesting experience that we went through. We couldn't have gone through all this if not for the pandemic, right? So I'm just quoting you one or two examples. So technology has actually proven to be the best friend we can have in moments like this, and it has opened up a lot more opportunities for people to come, interact, learn, exchange, and grow their interests, however small the community that may be holding that interest. In terms of Tamil usage, it's tremendous, and because there is no dominance of text and input, right? We had a discussion about this yesterday, where people they are very comfortable reading Tamil, but they're not as comfortable writing. There are other things we'll talk about it during the forum, but because they were able to come and speak and exchange their thoughts without having to type and looking at fonts and all that stuff, exchange in Tamil, I know it is tremendous. At least people outside of Tamil Nadu, we found a treasure because we could now get access to content that we were not able to access before, right? It was there, but the pandemic made it easier, brought down, made everything low hanging, so we can just go grab it. I get invitations like a dozen every day, about things that are going on. So there's abundance of content, so that has actually promoted this, developing the interest and pursuing the interest in that respective area. So that's my take.
Thank you. That was very nicely put, and it's nice to know that it's a common observation that people are so comfortable using Zoom now, right? So
yes,
it was very difficult earlier for them to the learning curve was a little higher, but this pandemic has flattened it. Yeah, thank you for that. I'll just add a further question to that particular thing. So since you are the founder of Selenium and the text, what's your observation in this pandemic years in Selenium part, the usage of Selenium?
Right. Well, the usage of Selenium has, I get like 500 to 700 downloads per day. Right. So new users coming up and using Selenium every day. And as you know, Selenium is a very basic app. I don't add too many bells and whistles. And of course, those who are using it in Google, you can invoke Google's voice input. Even that, I don't see that many people using it. There are two observations I can share. Number one, people don't go buy devices with Tamil first in their mind. Right? They just go buy devices. And there is a huge percentage of show off features that they want to go. I've got a big screen. I've got this. I've got that. I've got that. No one goes and asks, "Is that Tamil available on the device?" Right? Well, that has changed because today every device that you use, whether it's iOS or Mac, iOS or Android, you still have Tamil in there. But people buy and then they figure out, hey, is it Tamil? How do I input Tamil? And then they go look for other things. So they don't go and look for a device that has easy Tamil input or Tamil usage mechanism that is built in. They don't do that. Like what the discussion that we had yesterday, this probably is a mindset, is a perception that all technology development happens in English. And then we'll go and look for other people like Muthu Nadamaran and my fellow panelists here who do some work and give it to us for free. That's the search. Number two, this is my own observation. I don't have data to back up, but I think it's fairly reasonable to assume that this is true. One of the reasons why people hesitate to write in the Tamil script, although they write Tamil in the Roman script or the Latin script, one of the reasons why because they're scared of making mistakes. You know, when we write in English, we don't care about spelling, right? And the Web 3.0 or Web 4.0 doesn't even care if you are you're making sentences that are grammatically correct. As long as your message is delivered, nobody bothers, right? You even have company names that are spelled incorrectly, but you know that's becoming a fashion. But that's not happening in Tamil. You know, when you use certain words, people scold you. Those kind of comments. And yesterday, my fellow, Kumar mentioned that also. You know, you're like forcing it to people to conform to. I find that is one inhibitor one factor that causes people to hesitate in writing it in Tamil. So, you know, if you have text correction mechanisms that will eliminate all that and reduce that, embarrassment for them, I think that will be very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a further question on that. I'll come back to that later.
Sure.
I'll move on to Mr. Kumar. So we've talked about the text. We would like to talk about the voice now. So you're the voice person, and you also recently published an interesting infographic about your API usage all over India. So it was very interesting to see. So what's your observation on this voice acceptance, and what do you think is the future and also what do you think the kind of innovation that we need to do in the voice space? Yeah, from your viewpoint, please. Your voice again. Your voice is not. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, hi. Thanks, Holmes, and thanks, Iki, for this wonderful panel. Great to be here in the morning. So, with respect to voice and with respect to what we see as a trend, before we go into voice, I think we should look at what, like again, continuing to what Muthu said, like the trends that has made all these things actually happen because of pandemic, and the trend is already there, and pandemic just accelerated it. The usage of digital assets, digital apps to be able to now perform not just productivity tools like Zoom and other things, but do commercial transactions, like number of apps that we do, e-commerce transactions, banking transactions has also zoomed up. Right? Like it has doubled up in the last 1 year, the amount of e-commerce. So like now common man is now everybody. It's not just about the IT sector, but now the common man is now using apps to be able to now do ordering, right? Doing e-commerce ordering, all these things. So now, which essentially means that technology is percolating more and more down, and data shows, like just like you saw our voice usage is all over India. That's still a fraction of the overall e-commerce that usage happens all over India. Right? 98% of all PIN codes are now covered by e-commerce. Right? It is just covered everywhere. It's everywhere. It's now covered. So more and more people are now, whether they want or not, they're sort of being forced into this world. So now, but what has now happened is like the macro situation is now forcing people to be able to now use these technologies to be able to now do the day-to-day stuff. But technology itself is still trying to catch up to the needs of the people. In the sense, like there is still limitation in the way people are now being able to now use them. Like, yes, now I'm forced to use these apps. I'm now forced to be able to now consume these apps to do my job. But then am I actually comfortable in using my jobs? For my parents, are they comfortable in using these apps on their own to be able to now perform on e-commerce ordering? Or are they always dependent on somebody else, their friends and family, to be able to get them going? Because they know there's the only way for them to do is to use an app to be able to do. They want to be able to go from point A to point B. They have to depend on Ola or Uber to be able to make that journey possible, but they're still hesitant. So I think the thing that has happened is technology has caught on. People are now sort of forced to be able to use it, but the mechanism that exists for them to be able to conveniently and easily use them is still lagging. Right? One of them is the interface challenge. Right? When people are now using these apps, they are interface challenged. Like one is like the apps tend to be predominantly English oriented. Right? They tend to be very globally, because that's the way the brands who are building it tend to be very English first, English focused. They tend to now make it available. The second thing is like also the UI and UX notions that exist are not always obvious. Like menu means navigate, tab means you click here, and drop down means it's not obvious. It's so obvious for people like you and me, but it's not obvious for a lot of other people. Right? So like how do you now make these things? How do you, now that people are forced to use technology, how do you now make technology come down to them? That is where we think, and that's where we are also starting to see good progress, is the notion of voice as a layer, as in voice as an interface for people to be able to now use. Because now when it comes to voice, there is not much training that is required for the consumer. Right? It is so much more inherent, it's so much more natural. We know how the way we do it in our real world situations. Why not we try to translate somehow? Not, it can't be exactly 100%, but why not we bring the best of that real world experience onto your digital platforms also? Now start communicating with your apps in the most natural form possible. So that is, we are certainly seeing an increase in that direction. So I think that is like that's one sign. I think that's one way in which people, where the usage of voice inside your day-to-day digital apps, digital experiences, and to be able to do that in your own language. So that even prevents the problem that Muthu was talking about typing. Like I'm very hesitant about typing like I don't know what to type. Like, but if I can speak, I know I can speak what it means. Right? So now that's at least that's a way for people to remove the barriers that exist, and then over time, more and more things can start to come in. Like once you cut down the limitation that people have today to try out digital experiences, then we can innovate a lot more on top. And I think pandemic has actually opened up to collect a lot more data. Like you're saying, so much more opportunities are now opened up for us now innovate on top, because the need is there. Now it's all left to us people to now innovate on top.
Yeah, thank you. That's the nice innovation that you said, that voice navigation, right? Instead of clicking a menu or clicking a button, using a voice to navigate through pages. That's a nice innovation that you have done there. And do you predict, or do you think that this area needs more innovation? And what kind and which areas in the voice space, which areas you think that there are more opportunities available?
Absolutely. I think so. When it comes to voice, there are multiple touch points of people there, starting with like call centers. Right? You want to automate call centers, remove the human effort that is now required. So one thing with voice does is to remove human effort that comes in instead of having a manual call center. The other effort is like what the Alexas of the world are trying to do to bring in a completely different sort of an experience with voice. Like you don't even have to be near a device. You can be 10 feet away and still interact with your TV. Right? Interact with your something, any device without even have to be close by. Now, voice is the only way in which until thought becomes possible, thought-based communication. Today, voice-based communication is the only way in which you can make those things happen. The area that we are innovating is on like exactly what you just said, like which is on the apps, right? In the app-based space, how do you now make people's life using these apps so much more easier and so much more better? Now we are still scratching the surface. Is it a solved problem? No, like, because the overall the UI experiences have evolved over a long time and it has reached a certain point. Now, when it comes to voice, how do you now handle this? Voice creates its own set of challenges because you don't want to hear too often too much of speak back from the app. Right? It gets very boring because people can't follow if there's a long conversation. But they want to be able to know speak. Like, but again, when you speak, there are so many accents problem, technologies. So there are still so many other challenges has to be kept in. And moment they bring in a voice notion, they start thinking, oh, it's actually human that is there. Their boundaries become unbounded. Right? They start expecting a lot of things. Like, how do you now control that experience to make people understand this is an evolutionary innovation and not a revolutionary innovation yet. Right? So all of those challenges continue to exist in this space. And but I think that these are interesting times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Next, we will move on to Mr. Pani, who has a nation-level view about this in the language space, who also deals with government's projects, and who has a. So I would like to ask you a question on the data part, right? So most of the data is currently now in English. So what's your view on creating and consuming data in the regional language, preferably in Tamil? Since we're talking about Tamil, let's take Tamil as an example. Creating and consuming data in Tamil, and also do data-driven decisions based on the data we collect or create. So what's your view on that? And also your general view about this.
Okay, thanks. This is a very interesting question, and I was actually intrigued by a message that, by the Honorable Minister when he was mentioning about the history of Tamil language computing. And it did indeed began in the 1970s. And that would be super surprising because that tells us that, after the English language, which was evolved for computing in the United States in 1960s, the first non-English languages that actually, started to be used were Indian languages. And Tamil actually stands out among those after Devanagari, of course. Devanagari did have a focus as well. So I would say that, a lot of work happened And he also mentions that in the late 1990s, because of compatibility issues, things, started going down, going south. Now, there is one more example that I will give. Internet came to India in the year 1995, and the Tamil language support on the device of primary access to internet, say a smartphone, right, did not exist until about 20 years later. So what these have done to us is that, the ability to create data on the internet was itself almost missing. So let's say if we say that, a lot of work did happen in, I have been working on Indian language for so long. I have seen the Tamil Nadu government and many PSUs adopting Tamil language, and even the publishing industry adopting Tamil language on DTP, etc., so aggressively. But where has all of that data gone? If they could have existed on the internet today, then those were very high quality data. Today we are talking about Tanglish and the kind of data corruption that happens. But the fact is that a large amount of good quality data actually existed. And why did they exist at that point in time? Because people who were serious about it and they wanted to use, they were using it. So I would say that there are certain barriers that we created for people quite early when they were very keen to use the internet. Let's say internet is a great tool. It gives us all access to a lot of information and many things. Today you and I cannot even live without internet for a day. So when people wanted to use that and they could not use the native language, they thought it was, this is the only way they can. And there has been a bit of a habit that has got created around it, that people would like to use the internet in English, or if at all in Tamil, they would want to use the English letters. Some of it can be broken. Like Muthu said, that, when we are writing, let us say, even if we are writing a message or an email or whatever, a tweet or anything, a blog, then there is a degree of confidence in every author that, whatever that I am writing is correct when the spell checker is not underlining anything in red, right? And when we are trying to write in our native scripts, that confidence doesn't exist. And it is not that good tools do not exist. Good tools actually exist. There are a lot of Tamil scholars and enthusiasts in computing who have created great tools, which have also been in use in the past, but they could not come into modern systems because modern systems do not allow the use of an external language tool into the system. The language enablement also by architecture is limited by the operating system maker itself. Right? So unless Microsoft or Google or Apple is providing in their system, you and I cannot use our languages, even if we may have the best tools available with us. So data creation actually has been facing this particular limitation ever since computing in our languages have been in demand. And we have not been able to solve this particular issue very well. Now, the other thing that I would say is that, let's look at literacy. A decade-old census says Tamil literacy has been over 80, and I believe it must have definitely crossed 90% today, right? So if 90% people in Tamil Nadu are literate and they can speak their language so fluently, then they would be able to use, let's say at least write letters to their family and friends. Out of them, maybe about 10% or less will be English literate, fluent in English, as much as they would be in Tamil, right? So all the 100% of those 10% people will be fluent in using English on the internet. But out of those, 80% rest of the people that remain who are fluent in Tamil will actually, maybe 99% of them will not be literate on the digital media in using Tamil. So these need to be solved, before which we cannot really hope that data creation will actually happen in a large scale. And I think one of the things that we should do is go back and teach students in schools how to type in Tamil. We have, yesterday we discussed that, when the computer was evolved, the QWERTY keyboard layout was adopted as the layout. But that is for English. And that is something that we have continued to use for every other language. We are trying to force fit. But even if we are trying to do that, typing in English and typing in Tamil are not going to be the same. Learning how to write Tamil actually has got more steps to learn than how to type in English. And therefore, it becomes unintuitive for a native Tamil user to start adjusting to this kind of a keyboard. So if we teach those in schools, along with, when we introduce computer education in primary schools, then along with English, why not we introduce how to write some assignments in Tamil as well? That would break that barrier very early. And I'm sure students will like to write in Tamil much better. So data creation, I think we are still not able to see what is the natural data generation that people will be willing to do as yet.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, as you rightly said, earlier days we had this certification for typing, so that was mandatory to join certain jobs. Those kind of mandatory requirements are gone now. So that's also one of the, possibly one of the reasons. And technology has advanced, and then we are, we took some time to catch up. So that's why this gap. That's a good suggestion that we should, introduce Tamil typing to the kids at the early stage. Now I will move on to Mr. Mahesh. Mahesh, as you know, Tamil Nadu government has applied for a payment bank license. So, and India's fintech space is picking up, and it's on, it's one of those top areas where we get a lot of startups and investments and unicorns. So I feel that banking has to be personalized. The personalization is the thing now. Everything is personalized, right? So we get personalized insurances, personalized medical services. So similar to that, personalized banking. So when you say personalization, so what about the end-to-end customer interaction in Tamil? So what do you think about this idea, and what are your suggestions in this area?
Yeah, that's a very interesting industry that is growing up now. I think when the Nachigate More committee was formed 8 years back, they wanted to reach out to all the what they say, the unbanked, underbanked, all those societies. But then in between these wallet companies like this Paytm or all the telco companies, they all caught up. But now the government has already regulated this as a payment banks. Anybody can start. It is good that a government can take up the first initial step towards that, and to reach out to all those rural people. Even in urbans will have a different kind of thinking, but at least to the rural people. And now that people are, even for a 10 rupee or 5 rupee transactions, people are looking at digitalizations, and after this demonetization also this has accelerated. So I think the government to step in here and make it more very close to the people with their own native language is a must, I would say. And here to get this, one part is the government making the bank and make it viable and commercially viable and make it bigger. Another is to reach the, it's more, it's got a social dimension also. So I think it is better that the government takes steps to get it in the Tamil as a language from end to end, right from the onboarding of the client, opening of an account, transactions, everything. If it is an end to end, if it's covered in native language, it is better. But I'm not sure at this point how ready are we at this point. To give an example, in Credit Suisse in the last 2 years, our relationship managers had to talk to the clients directly and explain the products during the onboarding or some critical questions they had to ask. So previously they had gone to the clients directly and make some notes and some transcripts are made. But now, since everything is happening over Zoom, the Aviva had given us a transcript tool which is plugged into it in secure mode. So as the relationship manager and the customer talk, the transcript keeps appearing on the side, and any misinterpretations, because people are talking in traditional Chinese, Cantonese, there are so many languages also there. So everything is transferred to English and put in the transcript here. So it is more regularized for the regulatory features, whether it's covering everybody, everything or not. So they started doing it for as a pilot mode, and it worked well. And over a period, over 18 months, they took the data, and also it helped in many ways. See, the bank also got some data like what kind of questions that clients are asking, and where the RM is stumbling upon to give the answers. And it also tried out to build up the FAQ database based on that. So even if another RM talks to client, immediately when the talk comes about that around the topic, immediately appears on the screen, then RM can very seamlessly answer the questions of the client. And further, what happened was the same data was analyzed by Monetary Authority of Singapore, and they also looked at some loopholes or some things which they had to plug into the regulatory perspective. They also enhanced the questions to be asked from a regulatory perspective, and they added the account opening document questions, so it becomes more rugged. So I think had it been the previous pre-pandemic period, this wouldn't have happened, or it would have happened over 5 years or 6 years. They wouldn't have enough data unless the RMs or clients come to the forum and tell them. But now that they have captured the data through voice, they had lots of data with them, and they had to analyze quickly, and they come up with this. And they also found that some regulatory issues which they could have plugged 5 years before itself has come up now. So I think integration of voice into these things is going to be very helpful, and from a regulatory perspective, from a business interaction perspective, and from the client. So I think this payment bank step is a very good move. But it seems when I see PTR Rajan's interview, it takes around 18 months or some time, but we may be losing still some time there. But how quickly we get up there will be the key point to us to get to the advance.
Thank you, Manish. No, I just mentioned payment bank as a reference, but I think since, as you see, there are so many neo banks that are picking up, the digital banks that are coming. I think the startups should think in this way, create a Tamil bank entirely for Tamil. Not only rural, even in the cities, there are people who are only comfortable in speaking in Tamil, right? So, this is a nice startup idea. Someone should think of it, should work on it, and then try to, launch it. Yeah. So that's one of my interests because I come from a fintech background. Next, I would like to go back to Mr. Muthu. So I remember you once said that how you fought for Tamil displays in one of the cars. I don't know if it's a Range Rover or something.
Right,
So
right.
I still remember the story.
Right.
Now Tamil Nadu is becoming an EV capital, right? So there's so much activity happening in the EV. So EV means interactive displays or larger displays that have very interesting or personalized services provided. They will be in English, but these EVs will be sold to regular people. So we also gave a recommendation to the government that these displays should support Tamil. And Ola, I guess, supports voice, but it's still in English. We would hope that it will support regional languages as well. So what's your view on this in the IoT space, in these smart devices, smart vehicles space? Yeah.
Right. Well, that vehicle was Volvo. I'm still driving a car now.
Okay.
Interestingly, I had another. I'm looking at changing the car, so I went and test drove a couple of vehicles, and one of it was the Mercedes-Benz. And their display didn't support because my contact names, my song list on my iPhone, they're all in Tamil, right? So my wife was sitting next to me, and when we test drove, I asked her to call me, and her name didn't appear on the board. And I said, well, this is a critical bug in your machine, right? It really is. I'm a user, and my wife is calling me. I can't see her name on the dashboard. So it is a critical bug. I think that is the approach we should take. When we look for features. If you talk about EVs, they are meant. It will trickle down to common cars, regular cars that people buy. And if they are not able to see information, we don't have to, classify it as information in English or information in Tamil. It's information, right? So whoever calls me, I am not able to see their name. That is a bug. The system is incomplete. It's faulty. It cannot be used. It cannot be approved. That's it. Period. End of discussion. Right? They can't come and say that, oh, we forgot to include the font. We don't have all we need. I said, that's your problem. You go fix it. And then you come in, and then we'll certify your vehicle for common use. Otherwise, we cannot. We must be able to say that. And I think we have every right to. We don't have you cannot brand us as fanatics by saying that, because that's a right of a user, right? We want that, and we are paying you money. You are making a business out of this, and it's your duty bound to provide that interfaces. Period. Like if you're going to buy a gas tank, and if it doesn't do gas, why are you paying money for a gas tank? So if I'm buying a car that's supposed to navigate me, supposed to give me information as I drive, it's not giving me information. Period. Why it's not giving you? Of course, I'm an engineer. I know why it's not giving me information, but it's your problem. You go fix it, right? And then you come and send me the car. In fact, I did write to them, and they were quite responsive. And they did say that I said, yeah, you go fix a bug, and then you call me for a test drive again. I'll come to you. I think that's the approach. That's a principle we should apply to any. We are no longer dependent on mobile devices and computers for information anymore, like what you say, it's IoT. In fact, I work with many companies who are providing language interfaces for refrigerators, for microwave ovens, and they all, thankfully, they all come to me for support for Indian languages and non-Latin scripts, which means they are thinking about adding all that inside. So to catalyze that, if you have regulations that say that you must have this, like you go to Thailand, you cannot sell something that doesn't display a Thai language, because people just cannot use it. They just can't. If it's just English only, they cannot use it. And there are people like that in India too. There are people where they can use English words in between, but you give them text in English, they cannot read it. So it's a usability issue. The product cannot match the need of the user, period. I think those are, if we put that kind of a thinking cap and then draft the regulations or the principles, we actually create a better ecosystems for everyone to interact. I have been working with platform providers for some time, adding support for complex languages. They are not, none of them are hung up about not wanting to support any language. In fact, they are dying to support the language. All they need is justification, right? there are some things that I cannot disclose because of non-disclosure, but there are some cases in Singapore and in Malaysia where without that, the project will not go through. Project will not succeed. We speak 4 languages in these countries, for 3 different scripts, or Malaysia has 4 different scripts. And without that, it cannot go through. And they were so happy to accommodate that request and add that support into the platform. So they are dying to do it. We just need to give them a reason that they can go justify to the management. Look, without this, we cannot sell this. Period. That's my experience on this.
Thank you.
Yes, Holmes, extending from Muthu's mentioning, I would say even for government, Tamil Nadu government, asking others to get Tamil language into their apps and into their day-to-day operations, Tamil Nadu taking the steps to open this payment bank, they should be the pioneer in taking this into end-to-end Tamil, and how a big corporation like this, a payment bank like this, can act completely in Tamil. So I think it is very, very important for them, because they have reached almost to every nook and corner of the state. Like they can start with the e-seva mayams, everybody everywhere there. Or you can have the Panchayat office or a municipality office, everywhere they should be having. And to start with, they can always have Tamil as the entire, come end-to-end as the tool or language to be for the payment banks. They can always take it. So if we can force, or if we can expect the private or corporations to use, the Tamil Nadu government itself can take the first step towards that and be an example there.
Yes, we sure hope so, and we also would like to give our support in any way possible for the government to achieve this. Yes, that's one of the reasons we would like to come together and discuss and then ideate and then give policies to the government. So that's one of the core ideas behind it. So on that IoT part, do you think since there are so many EV factories being set up in Tamil Nadu, what are all the opportunities? What the startups should think of? Creating solutions for these kind of IoT problems or devices. What do you think that? What's your suggestion on that? Mr. Muthu.
Oh, me? Okay. Yeah. No, the interesting thing about interacting with IoT devices is, one of the barrier of entry is eliminated. Kumar spoke about text input, and all of us spoke about text input yesterday. We say that it's very difficult, and we also discussed it this morning. That barrier of entry is removed, right? So it's just interface. You either speak to the vehicle or speak to the mechanism, and the results come out either in voice or text. No one is typing anything. I can't type while I'm driving, right? And you can expect a keyboard on a microwave oven, or a refrigerator, for example. So the barrier of entry for text input is gone, and it's just voice. And voice is not a big deal. I mean, there are a lot of people who are doing excellent work in terms of voice support. So it's just applications that need to get ready for use. And like what I said yesterday, if you can convince the manufacturers or the developers of software products by adding Tamil or whatever language that we'll talk about in different parts of the state, by adding these languages, you're actually reaching to a bigger mass of people who can use or consume your services or use your devices or vehicles or whatever. That can be a convincing factor, right, for them to reach.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there are no the barriers are less. To do this, the barriers are lesser compared to computing devices, which are a lot more complex in terms of usage and both input and output. But for EVs and IoT devices, it's not so complex, at least in terms of the user perspective. He just tells it to do something, it does it. If it doesn't do something, it responds back. It's either voice or display, and there's no text or fingers input. It's actually a low-hanging fruit for us to start promoting the use of Tamil.
Yes. I sure hope that a lot of startups, they think of this and then come up with innovative solutions that can be added or plugged into the existing devices or the vehicles over there. Yeah. The next topic I would like to move on to is the advertisement tech or the marketing tech. So this social media penetration is all over. That is all over. So everybody is using it. Every business is using social media to promote. Influencers are using it. So if you see, there are influencers who speak local languages. They have so many followers. So there is this space that has developed in this. Either it's via pandemic or even before pandemic, this was there. So how do we use this space to develop language technology or promote or come up with solutions for the businesses to sell their products or their ideas or their services? So how do you see this space? I will ask Mr. Kumar on this. So your view on this, please. Sorry, voice.
I really don't have a good answer on this at this point, right? Like I think I'm still as you're saying, it's like I've been thinking about it. Like so, we have like it's in a very traditional way there are thoughts, but I've not been able to think about it from a Tamil or a specific way. Right? Definitely, the influencers have the ability to be able to now push technology. For example, this is one way in which we were thinking. Like for example, if you want to make something seem very common and very democratized, that make it very common, influencers have a good way to make it feel like it's now a common thing. If more and more influencers start doing certain activity, it will no longer seem like a niche thing. It will become mainstream. It will become part of the culture, right? Like the way like words become part of the culture because of the way people repeatedly keep talking about them. Right? And who are the ones? Like you and me talk is one part, but the influencers, they talk and it gets shared again multiple times, then it becomes part of the culture. So actions and things become part of the culture when these influencers start to do. So one way is like, again, it's like the way when people can now, like starting with what Pani had said and what even Muthu said in the middle, like the barriers that exist. And if people are, the influencers, for example, start to show messages. I'm sorry, I'm just formulating my thoughts as I'm speaking. Let me see if it's coming out coherently. But like the thing is, like, so when if the influencers are able to now show certain actions and then make them sound cool. Like for example, when I'm now typing, now instead of me having to now type things in English and then sending the message, and that's the common videos and everything that is shared, then that becomes a pattern. Okay, now everyone has to be typing in English literals, in English Roman, but Tamil language. Right? That's a common trend. Like in movies and everything, that's what is shown. If if the more common thing that has been shown is like, hey, typing in Tamil is the most natural way in which technology is being interacted, then that effectively becomes like a de facto standard. Right? People start to think, okay, that's the normal unit I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not supposed to be typing in Roman numerals. I'm supposed to be typing in my own language. Right? No, because it's a subconscious thing. It's like first, and it's okay to make spelling mistakes. Like I think the number one fear in like I think like Muthu said very well, it's like spelling mistake is a huge. Like I still shudder. Like should I say mono prina, rendu I'm still ashamed to say this. But if it is okay to make such mistakes, right, and still get out the point, and if this can be promoted in a very natural way, like the influencers can probably make a big things. That is probably I'm not sure if even answering the question that you asked, but like it feels like that's another way. Like essentially remove all the barriers. One of the barriers is the emotional barrier, the cultural barrier. This can, and I think these can actually play a role to be able to bring that in.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to have a view on that as an observer. Yeah. I would ask the same question to Mr. Pani. See, what the problem we see, right? Earlier we had these dubbing advertisements, right? The typical advertisement we see in TVs, and now we have these social media ads. So we have the same problem that has been forced into the social media ads, this translated or wrongly translated, or even they come up with wrong scripts, the ads. Now I get real estate ads in Tamil because they would like to reach the local people. And there are some mistakes there, but still people are trying to, use the technology as much as possible, the avenue that is available for them, to use the language and then reach out to their customers. So how do you see this space? What are the opportunities and the problems in this advertisement tech space in terms of regional languages?
I personally think that the regional language advertisement space is actually huge, and it is growing at an exponential pace right now. So it is just that, till today, for a very long time, the digital medium was perceived to be so English that even the digital advertising, which was a new domain, right? Earlier, when you used to advertise on radio or newspaper or on television, then local language advertisements were common, right? But in digital advertising, that itself was a new thing and it was English predominating. But now what is happening is that the local language ads actually see better clicks and better eyeballs. And there is a reason for that. Let us say yesterday we discussed that English has got I would say I'm not able to get the right word, right? So we have better honor for English, let's say, we associate certain degree of prestige with English, which at times we are unable to associate with our languages, right? Whereas the fact is that everybody who understands English also understands Tamil. And everybody who understands Tamil may not understand English. So by default, the reach is obviously wider when you are using a local language. But we still have been seeing that, English was a preferred one in many ways, just because it has got an elitist positioning. But that is definitely changing. It has been changing very rapidly now. So I do think that Tamil advertisement and local language advertisements, they are going to be much wider in reach and must be promoted a lot more.
Do you think that some software innovations are required in that area to generate ads? People, I think still the person who creates a social media ad may be good in that, but he might not be good in the language. But I don't think we have enough tools that are available for them to use and create. Like, in Canva, you go and create a social media post in it. But if you see in Canva, there's not much Tamil content there. You find a lot of English content. So I guess we need to provide or enable such solutions, or startups who should come up with some solutions as a plugin to Canva, where anybody can go and create a multilingual ad, one nice looking font, a social media post in English, similar to that in Tamil as well, so that they can just do it in one single place and then push it from there to their social media ad account. So
I must say, please finish.
I'm done. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I must say that technology has been a big barrier here. You rightly said that if you create a great ad in English, So there are multiple things there. One is you creating a fresh ad in Tamil will be a creative activity. Technology, for example, we work on machine translations. We have got, really very accurate machine translation. But if a machine translates blazing fast internet into I don't know the Tamil equivalent, just using Hindi, pardon me. Like it would become burning speed, something, right? So in that case, it is not going to give you the right kind of an impact. So advertisement actually is a creative work when it is about the information of the advertisement that is being presented. This second part is being able to represent that, like you said, the kind of fonts and styles that is entirely missing today. For whatever different reasons, on OpenType, we have got so limited fonts, and not just that, the creative publishing software themselves do not have enough support for, the fonts, etc. So it is like it's a very long shot when somebody wants to create advertisements in a local language. So that is definitely a very big barrier, and startups and companies like ourselves and like maybe Muthu's as well, so should be solving some of these problems big time.
Yeah, thank you.
Sobs, I have some things to add.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Let me give you two perspectives. I do come from a marketing background. I was product marketing for Oracle Asia Pacific. No, there are two ways to look at the creation of advertising content. I've been to many states in India. I spent a lot of time in Tamil Nadu. When I watch the television ads, especially the local language ads, it actually pains me, because the ads were not actually created for the Tamil-speaking people. It was actually created in English, and then they translate the concepts. Try to use some very cheap translation to. I'm sorry to use those words, but it is how it appeared to me. What is lacking, I think, is a proper training or course or a program on learning advertising copywriting in local languages. For example, if you want to translate a copy of ad copy, they give it to a Tamil scholar or some Tamil professor who look at all the ilakkanam and all that stuff, but he misses the complete point about the message. And if you take the nuances of the local community into account, you probably want to rewrite the whole thing, rephrase the whole thing so that it actually touches the soft strings, the hard strings of it. That's what advertising should do. What I see the local language advertising is just communicating a message that is written in a foreign language that makes no sense to the person who's listening. It makes sense to me because I understand English very well, and it's translated in Tamil. I know exactly how it's translated. Perhaps I'm going to reverse engineer the algorithm that I was used to do that. But what is lacking is some ground level training, a program. People go through this. It is actually a good business. I mean, advertising, like what Vivek said, it's an industry that's growing tremendously, but there is no resources that are being poured into it. There's no people who are trained to think like that. How do you think, or how do you phrase an advertising message to a farmer to whom you want to sell some farming things? All right, you need to speak in his lingo, his nuance, his locale, right? That's missing. So that's one part, the content part. I mean, I can go on this, but I just want to say it very quickly. The second part, talk about fonts. That's my DNA, right? I do fonts. The problem I see, I mean, I've attended so many conferences, type design conferences in Mumbai, in Delhi, in India, and all that. The thing I see is there's a lot of emphasis and focus on calligraphy, where the skill is dependent on, or the output is dependent on the person who is doing the calligraphy, and not transferring that talent to somebody else who can use that. That's what typeface design is versus calligraphy. Calligraphy is one skillful artist, brilliant person who can calligraph very beautifully, but the output of his work is dependent on him. Whereas typeface design is you create a beautiful typeface which involves engineering as well as design, so other people can make use of the work that you create. That second part is lacking. That again requires training, awareness, campaigns, workshops, conferences. I think if you take that angle, we may be able to fit some more, material into that space. That's my view.
Yeah. Like you said that you get disturbed about those translations, and I get disturbed about those two different fonts in the name boards, right? Beautiful
Absolutely.
English font and an
Absolutely.
average looking Tamil font, which doesn't, reflect the idea of that brand, So this space is, I think, I know in this, especially in this digital space, digital era where we get so much of digital advertisement that is, flowing around. So I believe, I hope that someone would come up with some innovative ideas or solutions, to solve these problems. These are all problems out there.
One example, Soms, is, most of the design schools, they teach typography as one subject in the design course. And in that subject, it's only Latin typography. They talk about serif, sans serif, they talk about italics, bold, and they talk about different weights. But nobody talks about vernacular typography or Tamil typography or, whatever other Indian Oriya typography. They don't talk about that. So there's no training. And so the guys who come and design the advertisements, they choose the most appropriate English typeface and find whatever freely available cheap Tamil typeface and just stick it to that because they want something to be displayed in Tamil. That's it.
Yeah, I believe this problem is also there for the IoT devices, right? So the display has to be precise. So when we try to use our own scripts, we have to create fonts for that as well. There are problematic areas. Yeah.
Soms, I may be sounding negative here, but I want to tell you. But because advertising, I've been in advertising industry for 6 years, and I've translated many ads in Tamil and Hindi, Bengali, and all. So what we need is the context is lost. There is a generation lost when the translation happens, even when it is a human translation. So when it is machine translation, I don't think it has got a long way to go. We are talking about baby steps now, but creative what advertising industry needs lots of creativity there, and I don't think machine language can come nowhere near to that. So like Mr. Muthu said, we can do some cheap translation, just word by word. That's it. We can make some rephrase sentences based on some machine language, and we can make a grammatically correct sentence, but still it may not strike the right chord with the customer. So we can just make I made a five full page advertisements in Times of India, made in Hindu morning, Dinamani Kadir in morning, but I can just make a count. But whether it made the business out of it, people rightly understood it, is very difficult. So I think language in ad tech, like in the Diwali ad, we saw this, right? The Shah Rukh Khan made one single ad and it was AI driven. Local people can add their languages. So that kind of a technology driven ideas that innovation can be in ad tech, but not on the language side. That's what
absolutely, Mahesh. I also agree with you. Machine learning is still learning patterns. It is not learning intelligence. It cannot. So there is no way that we should hope that machine will do creative work. Advertising is actually creative work. And I was trying to skirt around the problem that Muthu highlighted because it goes back to something that is a lot more critical, like the font technology, where a calligrapher's skills do not translate into a usable product because it has actually a lot of technical training that gets associated. That means even if I might be a passionate and very talented calligrapher, my designing a font does not, it is designing a font does not only include my talent in being able to design, right? So in calligraphy, and that all thanks to OpenType. So that itself makes it so hard that we live with compromised fonts. And I also agree, Somsundar, like you mentioned, that when we look at an advertisement that looks bad in translation, also bad in how it looks, we immediately form a perception in the back of our mind, even if we don't want to, that, well, this is something bad. So I would not even associate with that product. It is actually, working just the opposite of what that particular advertisement is, aiming for. So I think we will eventually end up having, more negative impression towards a local language advertising. Although it is likely to have a lot better impact if it was done really well.
I have just a counter. I think this has been a good topic. I think I just want to leave on a slightly optimistic note on this. Just my thought. I'm not a marketeer, but I am as an observer and as a technologist in this field. Right? Like the one that Mahesh actually said, actually is going to bring up that as an example of where we should control our thought process. Like for example, if you want to make ads regional, it is only because there is a need for the ads in that region. It is actually working, right? There's okay if I put an ad in a local, in a small village, in a small town, and it has to, it is Tamil, it actually is working. Now the demand should be able to now come there. How do you create the demand? Now if you expect them to keep coming up with the demand, it will never come because the technology will never catch up. If it is in the other way, like the Shah Rukh Khan example, I think is a brilliant example of how it can actually be driven in a very gradual way. To be clear, what one that Mahesh said, it's a well-made Cadbury's ad. Like the Cadbury's brand, Mondel's brand drove that ad, well-created ad. They created where Shah Rukh Khan is speaking and promoting a particular brand. Now, using technology, any brand can promote itself, use any brand, any shop can effectively make that, use the same ad and promote themselves. Technology will just remove Shah Rukh Khan mentioning that brand name and replace them with their shop name, right? Their shop name or whatever be that thing. Now that actually was extremely effective. It was high quality, well made. It is something that they would happily share among their friends and family. And if that creates an impact, now the drive is going to come, right? It's bottom up. Oh, look, when I add a good quality ad, it actually made a difference in my business. Now that will now percolate. Okay, now of course the technology is still a long way to go. If you expect full machine learning translated ads, that's not going to come. But now there's at least there's a need. Okay, market is identifying good quality local ads work, right? So then what is the next incremental baby step that we can now do? Right, the companies rephrase and dubbers and a lot of other guys who are now working in the space. Now they get that motivation to be able to now, okay, let's now make that happen. I think like that's in my mind the incremental journey it's going to take. The magical stuff will take a long time, but I think there's a possibility of a good incremental progress.
I believe that there is, the people who want their brands to succeed, right? So they put in a little extra effort to make it perfect, because when they find that their ads are not working, there will be a lot of human effort. I believe that will solve the problem. Yeah. So yeah, I will just have one last question for this panel, and then we'll move on to the presentation by the VIT Chennai, because we are running out of time. That's just the Python is predicted as one of the favorite or the future of programming languages. It's a widely used thing. What I was thinking was, will it help? And another part is that India is getting a lot of funds for the startups. There are a lot of unicorns that are coming up. There is a huge demand for the skills all over India. People are having 10 offer letters, and there is this high demand for skills, and there is a big pool of resources, human resources, that are underutilized because of that skill mismatch. So will learning Python in Tamil or programming Python in Tamil, I'm just taking Python as one example, not necessarily Python, because we have seen success even learning programming in English, right? Writing programming in English. But will writing programming in Tamil be of any benefit, or will it help? What are your thoughts on this one? It's a general question. Anyone can answer, please.
Okay, I'll go first.
I'll have to take that. Okay.
Okay, Vivek,
so,
go ahead.
Okay, sure. Yeah, you can also. So I have been a programmer for a very long time. Even today, I would love to do write programs. Programs usually are a collection of keywords or function names, etc., etc. And so I think, if we translate those into a different script or language, it will make it much simpler for many others to also, because logic is, or the ability to understand logic is there in many brains. But the ability to learn a new script language and a meaning of a whole bunch of things to be able to start thinking logic is a very big barrier. I have seen Chinese, I've been and worked with a lot of Chinese there who do not understand a word of English, but write awesome programs. And they use very advanced compilers, but by overlaying a Chinese interpreter over that, which basically converts the C language programs written in Chinese into the regular C language. And those are very trivial things to do. So I think that is definitely going to bring out a lot in children.
Yeah, my question came out of the Chinese point only because I know the fact that as well. Yeah, Mr. Puttu, please.
Yeah. I think I'm in sync. I'm in sync with what Vivek said, and there were some efforts in Tamil Nadu. I think it was in the year 2000 where they were actually trying to write a pre-compiler for the C programming language. I don't know how far that went. There's also an effort by called the Yedil programming language, which is actually a completely different approach to programming. But I think writing a preprocessor that translates to whatever the language is, whether it's Python or whichever the language is, it will certainly be very helpful because it will eliminate the first barrier of entry, right? So if the person who's not familiar with English grammar and has to learn a completely different keyword structures and all that for writing code, if you eliminate that and you can actually think in Tamil and do all his thinking in Tamil and write the code, and it doesn't matter how it gets compiled, it will actually bring about a lot more people to start.
Holmes, this is where I would say the government has to come up, because if you see in the colleges and universities, government has made that certain subjects can be read in Tamil also or studied in Tamil, like physics, chemistry, all those even core science subjects can be read in Tamil. But why can't the computer science then, or the coding language? So if now that government has gotten a good view in the colleges, they can introduce this kind of coding in Tamil. Like we all discussed now, all these coding languages will have hardly 200 to 250 keywords. So writing a small pre-compiler is not a big thing. But maybe this kind of government stepping in also could accelerate this, and people will come into this.
Government is very keen on upskilling the students, because even 2 days ago there was a one-page advertisement from the IT Minister, Mr. Manu Thangaraj himself, saying that how are they planning to match the demand, because it's a huge demand for skills. The government is also working on multiple fronts, so we can also present this as one of the choices where it will help people who are not so comfortable in Roman or English language to to learn and start coding by themselves. So I think this is what this has been in my mind, and I'm really glad that everybody also thinks of the same angle. Yeah,
I'll just add one more, Soms.
Yeah.
We also need to look at the reverse. A lot of time, I still write code, Vivek, by the way. A lot of times we go look for sample codes that we can paste into our code, right? So we must be able to take existing code that is written in, say, actual Python, and then render it in Tamil. So the guy who has read, who's writing Python code in Tamil, will be able to read somebody else's code that was written in Python itself. Yeah. So it has to be two ways.
We are all Stack Overflow coders. Yeah. So yeah, that's very practical. Yes. That we should do. So thank you, gentlemen, for your wonderful time. It was really nice. Yeah, please. Yeah.
So I just have one small remark to make. This is generic, but definitely on this particular subject. Let's say, before we had English in our country gaining so much of importance, India still was a country of many languages. And in spite of all that, we did not see a lot of, corruption between languages. These languages, they did exist, they had their honor, they had their literature, and a lot of studies that continued to happen without the kind of threat discussions that we are discussing today, right? But with, English, one thing that has definitely happened is the influence or the looking at our own populace as a market. And many times what we have done is we have tried and introduced things into India saying that, okay, let us sell whatever is there right now, because English itself is a pretty large market. And then what happens is that when English users or English knowing users, they start using, then that for the rest of the people becomes or appears like a privilege. And they think that this is exactly how it is supposed to be done. It sets a precedence. And then, the non-English finds and neglect. And like, we have all said that, Muthu said there was a tool, there was an effort, or government should do, and so on and so forth. A lot of such charitable efforts are looked at for the non-English, which obviously would not stand very long, Whereas the fact is that India, with its native, speaker population, is actually the largest market. So if we are able to think, native first, I'm quite certain that we will be able to, turn this around. And that is probably the way that if we can look at.
I think things are turning towards our favor, and I think the digital acceptance is pushing that. There are more and more personalized services coming in all verticals. So we surely look forward to such changes to accelerate, and then we get more personalized services in Tamil in medical and education and government services, for example. I surely hope that Reverie is also working on multiple government projects. So we sure look for Tamil tax statement soon from you. So it was a wonderful discussion. I'm really glad that we could come together and then discuss about this much needed topic where we could discuss an idea and then recommend some policies. I believe that we have noted down the points, and then we will Mr. Vinod, I think if you could let me just summarize it, and then we can say that what we are going to do next with this, right? So we have noted down all the points what we have discussed. We will recommend this to the government as well as a report. After this, we have a small demonstration from VIT Chennai, where they would like to demonstrate the projects they are working on in the language space. Mr. Vinod.
Thank you, Mr. Somasundaram, and I thank each and every panel member. What you have shared has been highly insightful, and as Mr. Somasundaram has said, we have an appointment on Thursday with the IT minister. So we will be sharing all the recommendations, and we will do our part to ensure that there is a follow through. It's not that we have hosted an event and we have submitted the recommendation, but each and every one of you have invested your time into this effort. So we will ensure that there is adequate returns for that time and have a effective follow-up being done. So to continue with today's effort, this session, so far we've had a lot of thoughts being shared, and we have invited the senior academicians from VIT Chennai to share some of their projects, some of their implementation on Tamil and technology. So we were very surprised to find that VIT, they have focused extensively on Tamil language development, and the staff, the students, everybody, they have a very vibrant and dynamic team working towards this initiative. So I would now like to request Dr. Jefferson from VIT to take over the proceedings and have this demo, please. Dr. Jefferson.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. And we have a lot of small projects running up related to NLP and Tamil natural language processing. So here we have a set of videos to explain shortly because we are out of time. I like to play the first video. The first video was by Dr. Florence and Dr. Nirmala. So the Siki team can play the first video. And they have around 4 products in that single video.
சோஷியல் மீடியா ஒரு கருத்து பதிவு பண்ணுற இடம் அப்படின்றத தாண்டி இப்போது டாக்ஸிக் சப்ஸ்டன்ஸாக மாறிக்கிட்டு வருது. ஏன் அப்படின்னா ஹேட்ரட். ஸோ ஒருத்தவன் எந்த இமோஷனில் பேசுகிறான் அப்படின்றதே நம்மளுக்கு தெரிய மாட்டேங்குது இப்போலாம். அண்ட் முக்கியமாக அவன் எந்த இமோஷனில் பேசினாலும் அந்த ஒரு கமெண்ட் அஃபென்சிவா நாட் அஃபென்சிவா அப்படின்னு கண்டுபிடிக்கிறது அதை விட கடினமாக இருக்குது. ஸோ இதுக்கு நம்ம பண்ணுறது என்ன அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, நம்ம மிஷின் லேர்னிங் அல்காரிதம்ஸ் யூஸ் பண்ணி நம்ம அந்த கமெண்ட்ஸ் எல்லாத்தையும் நம்மளோட ட்ரைனிங் டேட்டாவாக கொடுத்து அதுக்கு அஃபென்சிவ் கமெண்ட்டா நாட் அஃபென்சிவ் கமெண்ட்டா அப்படின்றத கண்டுபிடிக்கிறோம். அப்படி கண்டுபிடிக்கிறதோட அக்யூரசி 83%. அண்ட் அவன் பேசுறவனோட எமோஷன் என்ன அப்படின்னு கண்டுபிடிக்கிறோம். ஸோ இதுக்கான அக்யூரசி 64%. இது சோஷியல் மீடியா கமெண்ட்ஸ் அப்படின்றத தாண்டி அது ஒருத்தவன் பேசுறத வச்சு அவன் எந்த இமோஷன்ல பேசுறான் அப்படின்றத கண்டுபிடிக்க போறோம். ஸோ அதை எப்படி பண்ண போறோம் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, ஸ்பீச் ரெக்கக்னிஷன் அப்படின்றத யூஸ் பண்ணி சே வணக்கம் டு ஸ்டார்ட் தி டிரான்ஸ்லேஷன். ஸோ வணக்கம் சொன்னாதான் என்னோட மாடல் வந்து உள்ள போகும். ஸோ நான் வணக்கம் வணக்கம் டிரான்ஸ்லேஷனுக்குள்ள போறோம்னு சொன்ன எல்லாமே அதில் ரெக்கார்ட் ஆயிருக்கு. அண்ட் அதுக்கப்புறமா வெறித்தனம் அப்படின்ற ஒரு வார்த்தையை சொல்லியிருந்தேன். ஸோ வெறித்தனம்கான டிரான்ஸ்லேஷன் ஹிஸ்டீரியா. ஸோ நான் முன்னாடி காமிச்ச மாடல் வந்து தமிழ் வார்த்தைகளோட இமோஷன் கண்டுபிடிக்கிறது. ஸோ அதை யூஸ் பண்ணி வெறித்தனம் அப்படின்றத வந்து அன்னோன் ஸ்டேட் அப்படின்றத ப்ரெடிக்ட் பண்ணியிருக்கேன். ஏன் அன்னோன் ஸ்டேட் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்க அப்படின்னா, ஏன்னா வெறித்தனம் வந்து எந்த ஒரு இதுலையும் யூஸ் பண்ணலாம், கோவமாகவும் யூஸ் பண்ணலாம், சாந்தமாகவும் யூஸ் பண்ணலாம். ஸோ அதனால அது அன்னோன் ஸ்டேட் அப்படின்றத ப்ரெடிக்ட் பண்ணியிருக்கு. ஸோ இது வந்து நம்ம ஸ்பீச்சுக்கும் என்ஹான்ஸ் பண்ணியிருக்கோம் அப்படின்றத காமிக்கிறதுக்கான ஒரு விஷயம் தான் இது.
வணக்கம். இவர் பேர் தாங்க தமிழரசன். தமிழரசனுக்கு தமிழ் புக்ஸ் படிக்கணும்னா ஒரு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட்னே சொல்லலாம். ஆனா இவருக்கு தேவையான புக்ஸோட இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் இன்டர்நெட்ல எங்க தெரியுமே அவர் கிடைக்க மாட்டேங்குது. இதுக்கு என்ன காரணம்? உலகத்தின் மிக பழமையான மொழியாக தமிழ் இருந்தாலுமே தமிழின் எழுத்து வடிவுகள் தொழில்நுட்ப ரீதியாக சர்ச் பண்றது ரொம்பவே ஒரு கஷ்டமான வேலைன்னு சொல்லலாங்க. ஆனா நம்ம கிட்ட இதுக்கு ஒரு ஆன்சர் இருக்கு. இதுக்கு பேர் தான் பிப்ளியோகிராஃபிக் சொல்யூஷன். பேசிக்கா OCR, ஆப்டிக்கல் கேரக்டர் ரெகக்னிஷன் என்னும் ஸ்கேனிங் மெத்தடை வச்சு நம்ம படிச்ச புக்கை PDF-ஆ அப்லோட் பண்ணோம்னா அது வந்து இந்த ஆப்ல அந்த தமிழ் புக்ஸ் எல்லாமே ஆத்தர் நேம், டைட்டில் அண்ட் இயர் ஆஃப் பப்ளிகேஷன் பேஸ்டா செக்ரிகேட் ஆயிடுது. அண்ட் ரொம்பவே ஒரு எளிமையான வழியில இந்த ஆப்பை வாய்ஸ் ரெகக்னிஷன் வச்சு கண்ட்ரோல் பண்ணலாம். அண்ட் இன்னொரு இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங் ஃபேக்டர் என்னன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, நீங்க அப்லோட் பண்ற புக்ஸோட ஜானர் எல்லாமே ஒரு பேசிக்கான மெஷின் லேர்னிங் அல்கோரிதம் வச்சு ஈஸியாக கெஸ் பண்ணிடலாம். அண்ட் இந்த கெஸ்ஸிங் ரேட்டோட அக்யூரசி பார்த்தீங்கன்னா 99.9%ல இருக்கு. ரொம்பவே ஒரு சிம்பிளான ஆப் அண்ட் தமிழ் புக்ஸ் படிக்கிற எல்லாருக்குமே ரொம்பவே யூஸ் ஆகிற ஒரு ஆப்பா இது இருக்கு. நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
தமிழ்நாடு கலாச்சாரங்கள் நிறைந்த ஒரு மாநிலம். பீக்கபூவோட எய்ம் என்னன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, குழந்தைங்களுக்கு வரலாற்று நினைவு சின்னங்களை பற்றி ரொம்ப ஒரு ஃபன்னான வேலை சொல்லி கொடுக்கணுன்றது தான். ஒவ்வொரு புக் சீரீஸ்லேயும் ஒவ்வொரு நினைவு சின்னத்தை பற்றி இருக்கும். ஒரு யூனிக் QR கோடும் கூட அந்த புக்கில் இருக்கும். அந்த QR கோடை வந்து நீங்கள் ஸ்கேன் பண்ணதுக்கப்புறம் அது உங்களோட வெப்சைட்டில் எடுத்துகிட்டு போகும். நம்ம கலாச்சாரத்துக்கு ஏற்ற மாதிரி ஒரு சீனரியில் ஒரு கேரக்டர் உங்களை வரவேற்கும். அந்த கேரக்டர் அதுக்கப்புறம் உங்களை நிறைய கேம்ஸ் இருக்கிற சைட்டுக்கு உங்களை கூட்டிகிட்டு போய் காமிக்கும். இதனால் என்ன பலனுன்னு கேட்டிங்கன்னா, இதனால் நீங்கள் படிச்சுக்கிட்டே விளாட்றீங்க. ஸோ நல்லாவே உங்களுக்கு புரியும். உங்களோட ஐ ட்ராக்கிங், அப்புறம் வாசிக்கிற எபிலிட்டி எல்லாமே அதிகமாகும். முக்கியமாக தமிழ்நாட்டோட கலாச்சாரத்தை பற்றி கற்றுக்குவீங்க. இந்த கேம்ஸ் எல்லாமே எந்தெந்த லொக்கேஷனில் நீங்கள் இருக்கீங்களோ அதை பொறுத்து இருக்கும். இப்போ மகாபலிபுரம்னா கிருஷ்ணரோட பட்டர் பாலை பற்றி அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கும். இந்த கிராஃபிக்ஸ் எல்லாமே ரொம்ப கையால் வரைஞ்சு நுனிநுட்பமாக செதுக்கப்பட்டிருக்கு. இந்த வெப்சைட்டும் கூட நீங்கள் டெக்ஸ்டில் எழுதுறத ஸ்பீச்சாகவும் மாற்றுற திறமை கொண்டுள்ளது. நேட்டிவாக தமிழ்லே கூட உங்களுக்கு சொல்லும்.
இப்போ அந்த புக்கை ஸ்கேன் பண்ணுறாங்க, QR கோட் வர வரைக்கும்.
ஸோ அதை ஸ்கேன் பண்ணோம் அப்படின்னா நம்மளை இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு வெப்சைட் கொண்டு வந்துடும். இதுதான் நம்மளோட வெப்சைட். அண்ட் இதில் மகாபலிபுரம் அப்படின்றத லொக்கேஷனாக போட்டு நம்ம ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணோம் அப்படின்னா இந்த மாதிரி வள்ளியம்மா வந்து நம்மளுக்கு இன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன்ஸ் கொடுத்து அண்ட் அடுத்து நம்ம போனால் பாபாவை கண்டுபிடிக்கணும்னு சொல்லியிருந்தாங்க. ஸோ இதுதான் பாபா. நம்ம கண்டுபிடிச்சோன்னே பாபா நம்மளுக்கு இன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன்ஸ் கொடுத்து மகாபலிபுரத்தை ஒரு கைடு மாதிரி இருந்து நம்மளுக்கு சொல்லி கொடுத்து நம்மளோட கல்ச்சரையும் சொல்லி கொடுத்து ஒரு ஃபன் ஃபில்டு லேர்னிங் ப்ராசஸாக இருக்கிறது. ஸோ இதுதான் நம்ம வெப்சைட்டோட பேசிக் மோட்டோ. ஸோ
கயல் அப்படின்ற ஒரு பொண்ணு XYZ பேங்க்ல மேனேஜரா வேலை பார்த்துட்டு வராங்க. ஒரு நாள் அவங்க வேலையை முடிச்சுட்டு வீட்டுக்கு திரும்பி போயிட்டு இருக்கும் போது விசித்திரமா ஒரு மனுஷன் கையில கத்தி கன்னோட அவங்கள ஃபாலோ பண்றத பார்த்து ரொம்ப பயந்து போய் பதட்டமாயிடுறாங்க. பயம் எதுக்குங்க இனிமேல்? அதான் கணையாழி இருக்குல்ல. கணையாழி அப்படிங்கிறது ஒரு விமென் சேஃப்டிக்காக உருவாக்கப்பட்ட லோ காஸ்ட் ஸ்மார்ட் ஜுவல்லரிங்க. அவங்க கைவசத்திலேயே அவங்க எப்ப டேஞ்சர்ல இருந்தாலும் அவங்களுக்கு உதவுற மாதிரி இதை வந்து வடிவமைச்சிருக்காங்க. அந்த ரிங்குக்கு கீழே ப்ளூ கலர்ல ஒரு பட்டன் மாதிரி இருக்குங்க. அந்த பட்டனை அமுத்தின உடனேவே அது டிரான்ஸ்மிஷன் பாக்ஸ்ல அலோட் பண்ணிடும். அந்த டிரான்ஸ்மிஷன் பாக்ஸ்ல இருந்து இந்த கயலுன்றவங்க எந்த லொகேஷன்ல இருக்காங்க, அவங்க மொபைல் நம்பர் என்ன அப்படின்றது முதற்கொண்டு கண்ட்ரோல் ரூமுக்கு போய் அங்க இருக்கிற ஆபீசர்ஸ் அவங்க டேஞ்சர்ல இருக்காங்கன்னு அலர்ட் பண்ணிடும். அந்த ஆபீசர்ஸ் வந்து இவங்களை காப்பாத்திடுவாங்க.
ஸோ இது அந்த டீம் மெம்பர்ஸ், த ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் அண்ட் ஃபேக்கல்டிஸ் வந்து கொஞ்சம் ஆக்டிவாக இருந்தவங்களோட ஃபோட்டோஸ் இதில் இருக்குது. நெக்ஸ்ட் வீடியோ வந்து பை டாக்டர் கீதா அண்ட் டீம், தலைப்பு மற்றும் ட்வீட் தானியங்கி அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு ப்ராடக்ட். கேன் யூ ப்ளே த செகண்ட் வீடியோ?
தலைப்பு மற்றும் ட்வீட் தானியங்கி. வழங்குபவர்கள் டாக்டர் எஸ் கீதா, கணினி அறிவியல் மற்றும் பொறியியல் பள்ளி இணைத்துறை தலைவி மற்றும் பேராசிரியர். பார்த் பிதாரே, 3ஆம் ஆண்டு கணினி அறிவியல் மற்றும் பொறியியல் மாணவர். அபர்ணா மோகன், இறுதி ஆண்டு கணினி அறிவியல் மற்றும் பொறியியல் மாணவி.
ஏஐசிடி அப்படின்ற ஒரு ஆப் தானாகவே புகைப்படத்திற்கு தலைப்பை உருவாக்க உதவுகிறது. இப்போ நம்ம பார்க்குற பேஜில் ஹோம், அபவுட் மற்றும் கேப்ஷன் ஜென்ரேட்டர்னு 3 ஆப்ஷன் இருக்குது. கேப்ஷன் ஜென்ரேட்டர் ஆப்ஷனில் சூஸ் ஃபைல் அப்படின்ற ஆப்ஷன் கிளிக் பண்ணிவிட்டு எந்த இமேஜுக்கு நம்ம தலைப்பு வேணும் அப்படின்னு நினைக்கிறோமோ அதை லோட் பண்ணிவிட்டு கேப்ஷனைஸ்டு ஆப்ஷனை சூஸ் பண்ணணும். இது மெஷின் லேர்னிங் அண்ட் ஆர்டிஃபிஷியல் இன்டெலிஜென்ஸ் அப்படின்ற கம்ப்யூட்டர் சயின்ஸ் ஃபீல்ட்ஸை யூஸ் பண்ணி தானாகவே சில நிமிடங்களில் நமக்கு இப்போ தலைப்பை நம்ம லோட் பண்ண புகைப்படத்திற்கு கொடுக்க போகிறது. இப்போ நம்ம அதை பிளேயும் பண்ணி பார்க்கலாம்.
நாய் புல் வழியாக ஓடுகிறது.
பாஸ் பண்ணலாம்.
நாய் புல் வழியாக ஓடுகிறது.
அதே புகைப்படத்தை டவுன்லோட் பண்ணலாம். இப்போ நம்ம கேட்ட ஆடியோவையும் டவுன்லோட் பண்ணிக்கலாம். அது மட்டுமின்றி சோஷியல் மீடியா பிளாட்ஃபார்ம் ட்விட்டர் அப்படின்றதுலையும் நம்ம ஃபீடாக போஸ்ட் பண்ணிடலாம். நம்ம தனியாக ஒரு கேப்ஷனை டைப் பண்ணணுன்ற அவசியம் இல்லை. இது பார்வையற்றோர் மற்றும் தினசரி மனிதர்களுக்கும் மிகவும் உதவுகிறது. இப்போ நம்ம டவுன்லோடட் இமேஜை நம்ம கம்ப்யூட்டரில் பார்க்கலாம். நம்ம டவுன்லோட் பண்ண ஆடியோவையும் ப்ளே பண்ணி பார்த்துக்கலாம்.
நாய் புல் வழியாக ஓடுகிறது.
இதே மாதிரி நூற்றுக்கணக்கான புகைப்படத்திற்கு தலைப்பை தானாகவே உருவாக்க இந்த கேப்ஷன் ஜெனரேட்டர் ஆப் உதவுகிறது. அடுத்த இமேஜை நம்ம லோட் பண்றோம். ட்விட்டர்ல அது ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா ஃபீட் ஆயிடுச்சு.
சிறு பையன் படுக்கையில் அமர்ந்திருக்கிறான்
அப்படின்ற தலைப்போட இப்போ ட்விட்டர்லையும் அதை லோட் பண்ணிட்டோம். இதே புகைப்படத்தை நம்ம டவுன்லோட் பண்ணிக்கலாம். ஆடியோவையும் டவுன்லோட் பண்ணி ஃபியூச்சர்ல நம்ம ப்ளே பண்ணி பார்த்துக்கலாம். இதுதான் அந்த புகைப்படத்திற்கான ஆடியோ நம்ம கம்ப்யூட்டர்ல டவுன்லோட் பண்ணது.
சிறு பையன் படுக்கையில் அமர்ந்திருக்கிறான்.
மூன்றாவதாக ஒரு இமேஜை நம்ம இப்போ லோட் பண்ணி பார்க்க போறோம். இந்த அப்ளிகேஷனை நம்ம இன்ஸ்டால்ன்ற பட்டன் கிளிக் பண்ணி கம்ப்யூட்டர்லயே எளிதில் இன்ஸ்டால் பண்ணிக்கலாம். ஒரு நாயின் புகைப்படத்தை மூன்றாவதாக நம்ம கேப்ஷனைஸ்ன்ற ஆப்ஷன் யூஸ் பண்ணி தலைப்பை உருவாக்க போறோம். அந்தந்த புகைப்படத்திற்கு தகுந்த தலைப்பை தானாகவே உருவாக்குகின்றது.
கருப்பு நாய் தண்ணீருக்குள் ஓடுகிறது.
இப்ப தானாகவே உருவாக்கிடுச்சு ஒரு தலைப்பை. இதை நம்ம டவுன்லோட் பண்ணிக்கலாம். இந்த ஆடியோவையும் டவுன்லோட் பண்ணிக்கலாம் நம்ம கம்ப்யூட்டர்ல. இந்த உருவாக்குன ஒரு புகைப்படத்தை நம்ம ட்விட்டர்லயும் ஃபீடா அதை போட்டுக்கலாம்.
இதுதான் இந்த ஆப்போட தனித்துவம்.
அடுத்த ஆப் வந்து டாக்டர் சசித்ரா தேவி அவங்க பண்ணியிருக்காங்க அவங்க டீமோட. அது என்னன்னா மருந்தறி செயலி அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு அப்ளிகேஷன். என்ன பண்ணணும்னா, இப்போ தமிழ்ல இங்கிலீஷ் படிக்க தெரியாதவங்க ஏதாவது மருந்து மாத்திரைங்க வாங்கினாங்கன்னா அது பின்னாடி வந்து எவ்ரிதிங் வில் பி இன் இங்கிலீஷ் இல்லையா? ஸோ அவங்களுக்கு அதை ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா டிரான்ஸ்லேட் பண்ணி சொல்றதுக்கு அதான் ஒரு ஆப். கேன் யூ ப்ளே த தேர்ட் வீடியோ?
வணக்கம். மருந்தறி செயலி வழங்குபவர்கள் முனைவர் சசித்ரா தேவி மற்றும் முனைவர் சாந்தினி பாஸ்கர் உதவி பேராசிரியர்கள். தீக்ஷிதா, ரேஷ்மா, ஜோஷ்வா ஆல்ஃபிரட் 3ஆம் ஆண்டு இளங்கலை மாணவர்கள். மின்னணு மற்றும் தகவல் தொடர்பு துறை, வெள்ளூர் தொழில்நுட்ப நிறுவனம், சென்னை. மருந்தடி இந்த செயலியை பத்தி இப்போ பார்ப்போம். இப்போ பல பேர் ஆண்ட்ராய்டு யூசர்ஸா இருக்கிறனால இந்த செயலி யூஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருக்கும்னு நம்புறோம். இது ஆங்கிலம் தெரியாதவங்களுக்கு பயன்படும். இப்போ இந்த செயலி எப்படி ரன் ஆகுதுன்னு பார்ப்போம். இப்போ படத்தை தேர்வு செய்தோம். கேலரியில இருந்து டேப்லெட்டோட புகைப்படத்தை தேர்வு செய்யணும். தேர்வு செஞ்ச பின் மொழிபெயர் அப்படின்ற பட்டனை சூஸ் பண்ணணும். இப்போ தமிழ்ல நம்மளுக்கு அந்த பின்னாடி இருக்கிற பேசிக் இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் இங்க வந்துடும். இப்போ குரல் மூலம் அதை கேட்கணும்னா குரல் மூலம் மொழிபெயர்க்க அப்படின்ற பட்டனை பிரஸ் பண்ணணும்.
பெயர் தியோ அஸ்தலின். மருந்தளவு சல்பூட்டமால் 2 மி. கி. மற்றும் தியோபிலின் 100 மி. கி. சேர்ந்த கலவை. பரிந்துரைக்கப்பட்டது ஆஸ்துமா மற்றும் நாள்பட்ட தடுப்பு நுரையீரல் நோய் உள்ளவர்கள் எடுத்துக் கொள்ளலாம். 2 வயதுக்குட்பட்ட குழந்தைகளுக்கு பரிந்துரைக்கப்படவில்லை. கர்ப்ப காலத்தில் பயன்படுத்த பாதுகாப்பற்றதாக இருக்கலாம். தயவு செய்து உங்கள் மருத்துவரை அணுகவும்.
இப்போ இன்னொரு மாத்திரையை டெஸ்ட் பண்ணுவோம். இப்போ அதே மாதிரி மொழிபெயர் அப்படின்ற பட்டனை பிரஸ் பண்ணணும். இப்போ தமிழ்ல நம்மளுக்கு டெக்ஸ்டா வந்துடும். அப்புறம் நம்ம குரல்ல கேட்கணும்னா இந்த பட்டனை பிரஸ் பண்ணணும்.
பெயர் லோபரேட். மருந்தளவு 2 மி. கி. பரிந்துரைக்கப்பட்டது வயிற்றுப்போக்கை குறைக்க உதவுகிறது. 9 வயது மற்றும் அதற்கும் மேற்பட்டவர்கள் எடுத்துக் கொள்ளலாம். கர்ப்பிணி பெண்கள் மருத்துவரின் ஆலோசனைக்கு பிறகு எடுத்துக் கொள்ளலாம். மாத்திரையை உணவுடனோ அல்லது உணவு இல்லாமலோ எடுத்துக் கொள்ளப்படலாம். மாத்திரையை முழுவதுமாக விழுங்குங்கள். அதை மெல்லவோ அல்லது உடைக்கவோ வேண்டாம்.
நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
நம்மளுடைய அடுத்த அப்ளிகேஷன் வந்து டாக்டர் ஷோபாவோட டீம்ல இருந்து ஹேண்ட் டாக் டிரான்ஸ்லேட்டர், அது செய்கை செவிமொழிபெயர்ப்பு அப்படிங்கிறது. கேன் வி ப்ளே த 4th வீடியோ?
அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். இந்த பதிவில் நாம் காண இருப்பது செவிடு மற்றும் ஊமை குறைபாடுகள் உள்ள குழந்தைகளுக்கு உதவும் வகையில் உள்ள மென்பொருளை பற்றி காணப்போகிறோம். பொதுவாக செவிடு மற்றும் ஊமை குறைபாடுகள் உள்ள குழந்தைகளால் மற்ற குழந்தைகளை போல் வகுப்புகளை கவனிக்க முடியாது. மேலும் தங்களுக்கும் தங்கள் பெற்றோர்களுக்கும் உள்ள தொடர்பு இடைவெளி அதிகமாக இருக்கும். இவர்களால் மற்றவர்களை போல் எளிமையாக எதையும் கற்றுக்கொள்ள முடியாது. அதற்கு சைகை பயிற்றுவிப்பாளர் கண்டிப்பாக தேவை. மேலும் இவர்கள் அமெரிக்க மற்றும் இந்திய சைகை மொழியை கண்டிப்பாக கற்றுக்கொள்ள வேண்டும். ஆனால் இந்த மென்பொருள் மூலம் அவர்களால் எளிமையாக மக்களுக்கு கல்வி கற்பிக்க இயலும். அவர்களுக்கு இடையில் உள்ள தொடர்பு இடைவெளியை குறைக்க முடியும். மேலும் யார் உதவியும் இல்லாமல் தங்களுக்கு தாங்களே அறிவை வளப்படுத்திக் கொள்ள முடியும். இதுபோல் நிறைய நன்மைகள் உள்ளது. இந்த மென்பொருள் நம்மளது சைகையை உள்ளீடாக எடுத்துக்கொண்டு அதன் அர்த்தத்தை வெளியீடாக கொடுக்கும். இந்த படம் அந்த மென்பொருள் எப்படி உருவாக்கப்பட்டுள்ளது மற்றும் எப்படி வேலை பார்க்கிறது என்பதனை குறிக்கிறது. இது ஒரு சில எடுத்துக்காட்டுகள். இது அழுகிற செய்கை. இது வணக்கம் செய்கை. இது அப்பா செய்கை.
Moving to the last application by Dr. Rani Alex. It's called Bank Friend, Vangi Nanban. Can you play the last video?
Good morning. Here, our project is the chatbot in bank deployment using Tamil language. So, in Tamil Nadu, Tamil is very important. So, we are creating a Tamil chatbot so as to aid the customers who are only prone to Tamil language. So, here is a demo of the project chatbot. So, we can see that the bot greets us. So, like we have a step of commands we have to follow when you're asking a query, but this is not mandatory in every time. We are going to update the database as soon as possible so as to get or recognize any command which the user gives. So we can see. So when we type it says உங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது உதவிகள் தேவையா. So you can ask your doubts here. So when yes, if you have doubt and தேவையான உதவிகளை என்னுடன் பகிர்ந்து கொள்ளுங்கள், நான் உங்களுக்கு உதவுகிறேன். So உதவுவேன். So we can ask our doubt. So our doubt is எனக்கு ஏதேனும் விவசாயிகள் கடன் திட்டம் உள்ளதா. So we are asking a general doubt. This is specific this to farmers loan. So when we ask விவசாயிகளுக்கு உதவுவதற்காக அரசாங்கத்தால் அறிவிக்கப்பட்ட கடன் உதவி திட்டம் உள்ளது. How this answer comes is he searches the document in the back end of the bank, that is the scheme data of the bank is given to the robot either by uploaded as a code or we can directly give it like as a document, so as the chatbot will automatically search depend upon your input strings. So we also created a different response, but we use a limited number of tags so as to be sure about that commands, but it is not necessary. We will update our database so as to increase our commands. Also we are using a deep learning method so as to be error free. Also we are not directly like getting Tamil content and making solving or doing manipulations on Tamil content, because programs on Tamil content is very low. If you have to make the programs in Tamil, then we should create a new database for Tamil stop words and Tamil grammar, which is not easy thing to do. So we thought of creating a translator so as to include in the deep learning mechanism. See here the accuracy 1%. It is predicting algorithm. This predicting algorithm can help us to deploy different type of responses for different type of customers who are asking their doubts. This chatbot also can surf through the document and find the respective needed like output or answer to the chat output or answer to the question asked by the customer. So whenever possible, this chatbot also decreases the human assistance needed for the customer, and this chatbot will be available 24/7 so as to help the customers in any other way. Even in 12 o'clock night without money, this chatbot will work. So this is advantage, and this is a demo of the project. So these are the code. This is the translation code, and this is the translation we are using. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you, Siki, for giving us this opportunity. These are few of the products which are readily available for demo today, and many other projects we are doing parallelly. And if you need doubts regarding these products, we are open for discussion, and we are looking forward for all healthy comments from all the panelists and your guidance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jefferson, for showcasing the wonderful work that is being done at your institution. So we hope to launch quite a number of these products during the next session that we are planning with the government of Tamil Nadu. So I thank each and every panel member, the participants all those who have participated with us today and continue to stay engaged with us. I now request Mr. M. Somasundaram, the chair for SICKI's Tamil Technology Development Committee, to share his closing remarks and end today's proceedings. Over to you, Mr. Somasundaram. Mr. Somasundaram, are you there?
Sorry, it was on mute. Thanks, Vinod. Yeah. So thank you all the panelists and VIT Chennai professors and students for your valuable time today, and also VIT Chennai for presenting the products. We sure take all the points we discussed today and prepare a report and submit to the government. And as Mr. Vinod said, we will follow up on that and try to make things come out as much as possible, what we could aspire for. And for VIT Chennai, if you need any help in terms of technology or ideas, we're always there to support. And thank you, everyone. And thank you for your time today. Thank you. See you all in the conclave in March.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Have a nice day. Yeah.
Thank you all.